It's hammer time, the only place for all of your Maulers news on the United Football Media. I am joined by my co-host, my partner in crime, Alex. How's it going, man?
Going great, Webb. How are you doing, buddy? Good to
I'm
see you.
excited. I'm excited. This is
Me
a big
too.
one.
Me too.
And then we are joined by the Maulers trainer, the legend herself. Everyone, not one person says a bad word. I've tried to find some. Sue Hillman.
I
How are
could
you,
probably
Sue?
find some bad words for you if you wanted them.
So, of course, it's a Mauler show. How did you get hooked up with the Maulers? You weren't with them season 1, correct? Down in
Right.
Birmingham.
That's right. Well,
How did you join season 2?
my old-time classmate, Kevin O'Neill, called me one day and he said, Sue, would you be interested in being a head athletic trainer for one of the USFL teams? I'm like, oh, I love football. I'm retired, but I'll get back into it. And he said, great. So a couple days later, I'm thinking, holy shit. I retired as an athletic trainer. I've got to retest to get back in the circuit. So I called Kevin. I said, what do I do? And he says, you better get on the stick. So I had to take a licensure exam again.
Oh, wow.
Some 50 years after I'd certified the first time. And I'll tell you that was a scare to me.
That's crazy. Why the Maulers though? How specifically the Maulers?
Well, Kevin assigned us, and he
Okay.
knows my relationship with Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
So he thought, well, I'm going to buy into Pittsburgh Maulers if I buy into anything. So he gave me the Maulers, and I'm so glad he did.
So, did you work with Ray Horton with the Steelers?
No, I worked with the offensive line coach. He was an athlete there, but I didn't work with Ray that I remember.
So, the Ray brought over a lot of the Steeler culture kind of things. Compare the two between the USFL and the NFL, the Steelers, Maulers, culture, how the team, because I don't hear every player is like it's a family. It sounds like the Pittsburgh Steelers, just on a smaller scale for the USFL. Can you confirm that since you've worked for both?
Absolutely. I worked with the Pittsburgh Steelers 3 preseasons in the late, I hate to say this, late 80s, early 90s. And then I had an opportunity to work with the Eagles because my contact with the Steelers moved over as head athletic trainer with the Eagles. And so he said, Sue, come to the Eagles instead of going to the Steelers. And so I said, oh, all right, Rick, I'll go with you. I hated it. They were not good family people. They weren't guys that I could wrap my arms around. They were criminals. I mean, they felt like criminals. I'm sorry, but they did. And I told my players, the Maulers, that I've worked with both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a family from top to bottom. It's a family organization. And I said, I feel it already. You guys are a family. You're Steelers. You got steel in your blood. So it started from the beginning. I could tell right from the start the kind of individuals we had on that team. Just quality people.
Yeah. Talk about working for the league. Obviously, they don't have the resources the NFL has. But what was the experience like after your long career, retired, and now you're in kind of not minor league football, but right below the NFL football? Just talk about your experience with dealing with the league and everything as a trainer and comparing it to the NFL.
Well, it was tough. 2 athletic trainers for 50 guys. It keeps you busy. But my assistant was fantastic. He's with Kansas now, and won't be back with me next year. But he was a great help to me. But I had worked NFL Europe. I was the head athletic trainer for Scottish Claymores back in long ago, and it wasn't any different, except it was in another country. So I anytime that we'd feel down that we just don't have the manpower to do everything we want to do, I just reminded Jake that, I've done it before. I've done it in a foreign country. It's doable. We just have to keep our nose to the grindstone and do the best we can.
being in the USFL, these are guys that are trying to get to the NFL, or you've been in the NFL where guys are then at the end of the roster kind of guys. What's it like dealing with a catastrophic injury? For instance, Malcolm Howard, as the trainer, a guy that's trying to live his dream, and as a trainer, your role in the whole thing, his psyche, everything going on. What is it like as a trainer?
Okay, Webb, I got to say, catastrophic injury to me is more like Lamar Hamlin.
Okay.
I mean, that's catastrophic.
I'm saying a major where it takes him a year or two.
A season-ending injury.
A season-ending, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's Malcolm was a superstar because from the start, he just put his faith in God and said, what's to be will be, and I'm going to get through this. And he did, even the second time. But, the strength of these guys, the mental strength of these guys is what really gets them through and gets them past those rough spots. We had one kid that was a trouble, but he was more of a psychological trouble that had to be referred out. And he went on the wayside and took care of his own mental health. And that's the hard part of the job is the mental psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you talk about Malcolm, and Malcolm wanted talking to the guys. Your name's always brought up. Malcolm wanted to send you a message. He knew I was going to interview, so here's Malcolm.
Sue, thank you, and I appreciate everything you've done for us, for the Maulers family. Appreciate your encouragement words to us, and beautiful staff. Thank you, and really enjoyed working with you. Having you as a medical enforcer, help keep the health right, and I also appreciate throughout the times I was hurt, and you took care of me. Thank you for everything, the Maulers family. Let's go.
What a great guy. But
Malcolm said he had to say something today. So.
That wonderful guy. Yeah, I wish we could have the whole team back next year. I know we won't, but those guys are they're part of my heart.
Well, the roster moves the way it looks like. Everyone's coming back.
Well, that's good. Good for us.
Will you be back?
I'll be back.
Great. Awesome. There we go.
What was it like leaving Arizona for Canton, going back to Ohio, Pennsylvania area?
I'll tell you, I was hurting for a while because, we got in there. It was cold there. I mean, cold to me, to you guys, your buddy that comes to a cold practice with no jacket on.
He's a breakers guy. He's a breakers guy. Just give him a break.
But for me, it was really cold, and our equipment guy, Javi, he didn't have all of our gear in yet. We didn't even have a sweatshirt. I brought a couple things, but I can't wear purple out on the field. So, I was kind of shivering the first few days. I felt for your guy that didn't have the jacket because I felt that cold.
And the crazy thing is I live in South Georgia. I brought a jacket. He's from West Virginia, right down the road. He's got a 2-hour commute to Canton, and he didn't bring a jacket. I was like, what are you doing? But he's a breakers guy, like I said, and he's a breakers guy. We got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and from Arizona, I don't even own a jacket.
Neither do I. My jackets are considered sweatshirts down here in Georgia. That's it. One of the big moments, I think, of the season was your speech of "Don't Blink." For some reason, that spoke to me, and it spoke to the guys. First of all, when does a trainer ever break down the huddle on the eve of the biggest matchup of this season, win or go home? And what led you to the "Don't Blink"? Well,
before the huddle at the end, I was warned by an assistant coach. Can't mention his name, but that gave me the heads up that was going to happen. So I started going back through my Tomlin isms, and one of the things that he used to say when I was on the field, he'd say, "Don't blink," and that really just resonates with me because you have to pay such keen attention to everything that you just can't blink. You blink, you're going to miss something. So when Ray called me up to do the huddle, I thought, okay, I'm going to talk to him about don't blink, because this is a must-win game, because I want you to play on my birthday, which was in the championship game, or I think the 24th of June was the game to get into the
North Championship.
Yeah. So I was reminded about that. Hey, we're playing for your birthday, and they didn't let me forget that. But yeah, the don't blink was from Mike. It was something that resonated with me, and I wanted to pass it on.
Well, what spoke to me was you had guys like Reuben Foster, collegiate legends, captivated by the trainer giving a breakdown huddle going into the biggest game, and it just spoke about the culture. Like you had the social media girl catch the punt at one time, and like it just seems like there was a family culture. And
totally
going into the playoffs, it was them, that locker room versus the world, and that was okay because you guys were so interwoven. But
yeah, it was a wonderful feeling in that locker room, and the guys were, golly, I invite every single one of those guys into my home, and that's a lot of trust and a lot of respect.
Alex,
you got anything for the Maulers?
Specific to the Maulers, Sue, I think you touched on it. And Webb asked me to be part of the show back in July. So I think this is my 5th show. I'm still getting my feet wet. But from the people associated with the organization that we've spoken to, that's been the consistent thread and theme is culture, family. Webb already touched on it, how it relates to the Steelers and whatnot. But, we're excited when we see some of these re-signings, to your point, if we can bring those guys back, how special this team could be next year. Because in your opinion, probably like ours, we were a doggone good football team for 4-6. We lost a lot of games we probably shouldn't have lost up early. And I think we were every bit as good as Birmingham at season's end. Sort of, what are your expectations for 2024? Obviously, depending on who we bring back, but if we bring back the majority of the core, and if you're with us too, what do you think?
Well, I really feel like I'd like to see more out of the offense. I'd like to see a stronger protection on the offensive line. I'd like to see a better control of the offensive play patterns, and you got to have great receivers to make your quarterback look good, and we've got some great receivers. So I just want that to gel a little bit more. The defense, how could you ask them to be any better? They're beautiful people and great athletes. The one thing, if I get a chance to talk to them this year, and I will at the first team meeting probably, I want to let them know something that Terry Bradshaw said today on air. He said, when you have an elite athlete being happy with how he's playing, you've got an unstoppable person. And that culture is doable in our Maulers team. We're dedicated, we're a family, we're driven. Now we just got to be happy. We got to be just finding joy in every single thing we do. And that's what I'm going to try to bring this year, is a joy.
That's awesome.
I like that. We're going to drop the hammer.
Are you ready to drop the hammer, Sue?
I'm ready to drop the hammer.
All right, so non-football related. You ready, Miss Sue?
Ready.
All right. We're making a movie about your life. You're the first female guest on Hammer Time, so it'd be a different answer than most. Who's the actress to play the biopic?
Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, didn't miss a beat either. That was good.
Exactly. You thought about this.
Nice.
If you were in charge of music at practice, what would they be listening to?
Oh boy, they wouldn't want to listen to what I want them to listen to. I would probably, knowing their speed, I'd probably do some MC Hammer, only because he's got a hammer in his name.
There you go. There you go. And if you weren't a trainer, what would Sue Hillman be doing? Well, I guess retired by now, but what would have your career been?
Oh man, I have such a glorified career. I have been so blessed in so many ways throughout my years in athletic training that I couldn't dream of being anything but what I've been. I mean, I probably would be a bum.
So now, Alex, Pittsburgh trivia.
Okay.
You're one of the first guests to actually live in Pittsburgh. Most of the players obviously never been to Pittsburgh, but they represent Pittsburgh Maulers. So Alex is going to give you a couple of Pittsburgh trivia questions. You ready?
All right.
I'll give you a couple. Yeah, Blewett did pretty well on these, but I'll ask again. 2 inclines that go up to the top of Mount Washington. Do you know the names of those inclines?
Holy shit! I worked there for preseason ball. I didn't live there, and I was in Latrobe. I wasn't in the big city.
Okay.
So no, I don't know that.
Okay. It's that was good. Duquesne, one's called Duquesne, the other's the Monongahela. So and did you know this? And they're 2 operating now, but in its heyday, there were actually 24 inclines in and around Pittsburgh that were operating at once, if you can believe that. So yeah, that's something. Let's try this one then. 1960 World Series. Walk-off home run against the New York Yankees. Pittsburgh Pirates, New York Yankees, Forbes Field, Game 7, bottom of the 9th. Who hit the home run for the Pittsburgh Pirates to the first walk-off World Series win ever?
Well, I'm not a baseball fan.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a football name. I'm going to say it was probably Cordell Stewart.
That's a great guess. He was an Arizona State guy. No, I'm joking. Actually, it was Bill Mazeroski.
Never would have known.
Okay, that was a tough one. These baseball ones are tough. All right, let's see if I can come up with one last one. I'll give you one last one. What current legend for the Pittsburgh Maulers is the second all-time leading scorer in Pitt Panther football history?
Pitt Panther. A Mauler that was a Pitt Panther. I should know. No.
He's got a great leg.
Oh, Ed Blewett.
Boom, you got it. Here's another little trivia. You got it. Chris Blewett.
He's the Panther, huh? Oh, okay.
Yep. He's the second leading scorer in Pitt Panther history. Now, here's one I didn't know until I looked it up. Would you believe he's actually tied for second in Pitt Panther scoring history with Alex Kessman, who is a place kicker for the Memphis Showboats? So what are the chances 2 USFL kickers both went to Pitt and they are tied with 363 total points for the Pittsburgh Panthers, second in Panther history? So
it's 100%. The chance is 100%.
There you go. Well, thanks for playing along with the questions. We've gotten some really good answers from these guys, so we have a little fun with it.
He knows what a yinzer is, though. You know what Sue? You know what a yins means, correct?
Oh, who?
Yins.
Yins. No, tell me.
Y'all. You all.
Yins.
It's Pittsburghese.
Okay. All right. I'll study that one. My assistant is from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So you can try those trivia questions on them and see how that goes over.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, actually, I have to ask you this, Sue, because as we were getting ready for the interview, really struck me when I looked back at your career, Purdue, on to the University of Arizona with the Steelers and whatnot. And I look at the time period when you started, and I think, first of all, what drove you to get into athletic training? You think about the time that an emerging profession. I mean, what was it?
Well, I was playing AAU basketball, and I tore my anterior cruciate ligament. So I went to a doctor at the Student Health Center, and he sent me to rehab with a guy named Pinky Newell. Pinky was the athletic trainer and physical therapist at Purdue. And I fell in love with what that man was doing. I watched him work with different patients that were in the room, and I just idolized him. And to be expected. I mean, he was my idol. He's he was an idol for a lot of people. But I decided at that time I wanted to do what Pinky did. So Pinky went undergraduate at Purdue University, and he did his PT degree at Stanford. You know where I did my PT degree?
Stanford?
Stanford.
Not surprised. So breaking into the so I'll give you a little point of reference. Back in the 80s when I came through, and then early 90s when I was coaching, small college, Division III, we were just to the point where we had one full-time trainer. And I know it was a real big, like for the college, we got this athletic training program within the College of Physical Education, I think it was, and started bringing in trainers, and there were like, student trainers all over the place. And it was great because back when I played, it was the offensive line coach that taped your ankle to the point that your toes turned purple. And it was like, no one wanted to get hurt because no one wanted to deal with it. But you could sort of see the profession developing and there being an interest in this growth. And then I think back to sort of the time when you broke into it. I mean, it had to be totally uncharted waters, not only for a lot of folks, but then also for a woman breaking into this side of the business, and then to sort of, go from there to, being the head trainer at a major school like the University of Arizona. Had to be a wild ride.
As I look back on it, I think, well, that was pretty cool. But at the time, I thought it was just normal.
Right.
I just went about my business. Like, I finished my degree at Stanford, and I came back to University of Arizona just about the time that the head athletic trainer was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and he was sick. He was worse as the days went on. I was there 6 months, and every day he'd bring me into his office and he'd tell me he had everything in his head. He had phone numbers in his head. He had everything in his head. And he tried to tell me everything that hadn't been written down because it was all in his head. He tried to tell me everything. When he passed away, Sid Dempsey was the athletics director. Sid Dempsey moved on to be the head of the NCAA. But Sid pulled each of the three other full-time athletic trainers in and asked them if we needed 5 athletic trainers to run the department, which was a co-ed department at that time. And all of us said, no, we don't need 5. We have 4 is plenty. And we had 4 people.
Right.
So Sid decided that then would mean that we've got to bring somebody from inside up into the head rank. I was associate head athletic trainer, hired in as associate head athletic trainer. So I got the move up, and the second in command then got a little disgruntled and started saying, well, I've got more experience. Well, he didn't. We both had the same experience, but I had a PT degree and he didn't. I had an athletic training degree from Arizona, and he did as well. So I just had a little bit more than he had, but both with the same on the field experience. So I got the job and pissed off a lot of males. And it wasn't my fault. I mean, I didn't hire myself.
Right.
Get pissed off at Sid Dempsey, not Sue Hillman.
Right.
And then the same kind of thing when I got into the NFL, I had resigned my job at Arizona, and I was going to move up to Phoenix to teach full time. And Rick Burkholder was working with the Steelers then, and he called me and he said, now that you're not working Arizona football, you want to come and work Steeler football? I'm like, sure, that'd be fun. So I did. I had to get leave from my school to do that, but they're like, fine, that's feather in our cap. So that's how it started. It was that somebody that I had trained and I had put on my staff then decided to pay it back.
Got it.
And
yeah, that's incredible how that turned. And I think from Arizona, when you said, so two things. So Arizona, you guys had 4 trainers there for a while, right?
mm-hmm.
How many trainers does Arizona have full time now?
8 or 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
It's crazy.
Did you get a chance to work with? Sorry.
That's what makes it even crazier that the USFL is running a 50-player team with 2.
Yeah. Busy days.
Yeah.
How was it to work with Dick Tomey?
Oh, I love Dick.
He's a good man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Larry Smith. I had Larry Smith. I had Jim Young at Purdue.
Oh yeah.
And then Jim Young again at Arizona. But those are my guys. And then Bill Cower, who's like my brother, and then Mike. All great coaches. All great coaches and great people. Most of all, great people.
Well, last question for you from my side, and then I'll flip it back to Webb. But really appreciate the perspective. And I can tell you that, like, when I was coaching, trainers were worth their weight in gold, and I was very fortunate to work with some very good ones. And we had a couple of, I wouldn't say coaches that would be adversarial toward trainers, but I really felt like you guys always had the kids, the student athletes' best interests at heart. And plus, I also found that if we worked with you guys and tried to partner, that that was just a better way to go about it than if you were being a real jerk to the trainer. There's no sense to do that. But I've seen the value of what you guys bring. But you touched on something that's interesting to me. How much of your job do you feel goes beyond the physical and also deals with the emotional when you're dealing with these players, some of these younger kids?
It doesn't matter their age. It's more their self-worth,
mm-hmm.
their self-concepts, their emotional self. It could be the oldest kid on the team, or it could be the youngest kid on the team. They're all affected the same way. Mm-hmm. We had one player that transferred over from another USFL team, and he had a bad rap at the other USFL team. And that information came to me. And I like to make my own decision on people. I don't like to be biased with somebody else says, because I believe that if I treat you with respect, you're going to treat me with respect. If I treat you with courtesy, you'll treat me with courtesy. So it's a two-way street. So I met with the kid the first day that he was in, and I told him that just what I'm telling you. And I'll tell you, he was one of my favorite athletes. And the other team would say he's a crap. Yeah. But it's a two-way street. You can't disrespect somebody and expect them to respect you. No, it's not going to happen.
That's right. Well, I know I said that I would ask one last question and flip it to Webb, but I've got one last question to my one last question. If you had, like, we're going to try to push this. I'd really like to get this content out in front of folks. And if you had to give a piece of advice for someone that's looking to make a career, to follow your footsteps, young to the industry, trying to break in, what would you give them in terms of advice? Like, if there's a nugget or two that you could give them as far as being successful in this?
Alex, that's one of the toughest questions. And I've been asked that by females trying to get where I got. And it doesn't happen like it happened for me anymore. I was in a special spot at a special time, and I knew special people, and I told you I was blessed.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot harder. It still is a people organization. And Sed Dempsey said to me one time, all the athletic trainers are the same, Sue. You finally figured out that you need to hire somebody that you can get along with, not somebody who's top name, top in the class, you know, you may not be able to get along with them.
Right.
Well, I can get along with most people, but I certainly respected that advice, because just any NFL team, if they bring somebody in and they can't get along with that person, if that person's not doesn't see things to be done and do them and take care of business and not have to ask the head athletic trainer for everything they do, you know, if they can be conscientious about their work, they're going to get along further. They're going to do better, and don't come in with a holier than thou attitude. You know, it's everybody's great. There's not an athletic trainer that isn't valuable enough to work where I work.
All right, Sue, we've come to the end zone. It's the end of the show. And
Did we get a touchdown?
yes.
On the goal line.
Yeah. We're on the goal line. You got to
All right.
take the ball over the end zone.
All
It's the
right.
end of the show. And you threw me off there a little bit. If you have any messages to anyone, Mauler Nation, players, family, friends, this is your time. The floor is yours.
All right. I would like to say to all the players, because I hope that all the players are going to be back. I mean, I watch X all the time to see what you're posting, Webb, you know, whether who's coming back. But I hope they all come back, because I love those guys so deeply. I just want to wrap my arms around every one of them. So I hope you all come back, and I hope you come back and ready for fun, because we're going to have some fun next year.
That's awesome. You ready for Canton or Pittsburgh winner?
I have all my warm clothes that they gave me at camp this last year. I've got those. I'm going to drive this time, because if I fly, I can't bring everything I need. So I'm going to drive and pack my car full of cold weather clothes. Everything I own.
That's awesome. We're planning to end up and visit you guys in Canton again. So I appreciate, we'll catch up in Canton or Pittsburgh. I keep saying Canton because I just keep thinking about Canton, but it could be in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Hopefully it's in Pittsburgh. But thank you for joining us. Like pleasure. I said, everyone, there isn't one person that is not like, I love Sue Hillman, that is part of the Maulers family. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you being the mom figure, I guess, the
grandma
for all the players. The grandma figure for all the players. And I look forward to meeting you again up in Canton or Pittsburgh. All right.
Yeah. It's great to meet you too. Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Have a good night. This has been Hammer Time. Hammer down, Web out.